Buka YouTube. Buka YouTube. This is paint component method, and we're just going to send in our
English is my second language. As a vlogger, I deal with social media a lot, which is actually fun for me, but I will say sometimes it's challenging. For my social media, I have to think about captions a lot that sometimes require me to write in English and reply to emails in English, and I need to make sure
graphics G within here. Then what we're also going to do is take our image dot paint icon, and there's a few fields to fill in with these parentheses here. The first is this, and this is our J panel basically. G is going to be our graphic, so we'll keep that as G. We need a X position, so image corner dot get X method. We're going to do the same thing for Y. So this will get the new position for our image. Then we'll probably want to cast these as an integer, so we're going to use the cast int for X and Y. Okay, that looks good then. That's all we need for this paint component method. Next, let's go to our click listener. So what we're going to do within here is create a method, public void. We're going to call this mouse pressed, and there's one parameter, mouse event E. Then we'll need to import something. Then what we're going to do within here is we're going to take prev point, our previous point, equals E dot get point. So all this is doing is updating the previous point to wherever we click. And that's it for our click listener. So the last step is to fill in this drag listener class, and then we're done. Let's check to see what we have so far. So when we run this, here's our image, well, at least the one that I picked. It's in the top left corner, but we cannot yet drag it and move it. So that's what we're going to work on next then. So within our drag listener class, we're going to use the mouse drag method. So type in public void mouse dragged. And then the parameter is mouse event e. Then add a set of curly braces. So the first line within here is we're going to create point. We'll call this current point, current PT for short, equals e dot get point, wherever our mouse event currently is. Now what we're going to do is take our image corner, and we're going to use the translate function. So this takes an x dimension and a y dimension. So I'm actually going to expand these parentheses to give us some room. So the first thing we're going to type between the parentheses of the translate function is we're going to take our current point and use the get x function minus previous point dot get x function. Then let's put these all within parentheses, and we're going to cast this as an integer. Alright, so then add a comma afterwards. We're going to copy this and do the same thing for the y position. So int current point dot get y, and then previous point dot get y. So this is going to translate our image corner to the new position, wherever our current point currently is after dragging our mouse. Now we're going to take previous point equals wherever our current point we're going to use the translate function. And then lastly, we just need to repaint this x dimension and a y dimension. Let's run this. So I'm actually going to expand these parentheses. Here's our image, and we can now drag it and drop it. So the first thing we're going to type between the parentheses of the translate function is we're going to take our current, post all of this in the comments down below. But yeah, that's how you can make a drag and drop project in Java. Minus
how's it going, everybody? It's Bro here. Hope you're doing well. And in this video, we're going to be discussing key bindings in Java, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
And we're going to cast this as an integer.
If you find this video helpful,
so
please remember to
afterwards,
like, comment,
and
subscribe. Your support will help keep this channel running. Alright,
So,
everybody, we're going to be discussing
current
key
point
bindings.
dot get
What this does
y,
is that this
and then
binds an
previous point
action to
dot
a
get
certain
y.
keystroke. So for example, let's say
this is
that
going to
within
translate
certain games you might be able to move your character forward by clicking the W button,
Int
or A
current point
for
dot
left,
get
S for down,
y,
or D for right.
and then previous
so
point
this is
dot
very
get
similar
y.
to key listeners, but
So
there's
this
a
is
few
going to
subtle
translate
differences.
our image
So
corner
with
to
key
the new
bindings, they
position,
actually don't
wherever
require
our
you to
current
click a
point currently
component to
is
give it
after
focus.
dragging our
And
mouse.
all swing components,
Now
at
we're
least
going to
all
take
swing components
previous
that I know of,
point
actually are capable of using
equals
key bindings.
wherever
And the
our
reason
current
that you
point
might want to use
currently
key
is
bindings
translate.
over key
And then
listeners
lastly, we just
is
need
that
to
they give you
repaint
more
this x
flexibility.
dimension and a
You can
y
actually
dimension.
assign
Let's run this.
different
So
keystrokes
I'm
to
actually going to
individual swing
expand
components.
these
So let's say
parentheses.
that you have player 1 and player 2.
So the first thing
You
we're
can
going
have
to type
player
is
1
that's it for this
certain set of
project.
project,
If we're going to
player
take
2
our code, I'll
current
post all
different
of this
points.
in the comments
Although
down below.
use outside
But
use
yeah,
of key
that's how you
bindings
make
over key
a
listeners
drag
is
and drop
that they tend to be
project
more
in Java.
difficult to
How's it
utilize.
going, everybody?
But I'll give you guys
just
well,
a
in this
quick
video we're going to be
demonstration
discussing
of how these
key
could be
bindings
useful.
in
Then
Java.
I'll
You ready?
put these
Let's
all
sit
within
back.
parentheses.
We're going to
Relax
create
and
a
enjoy
new
the show.
class
We're going to
within my
cast
project
this
folder.
as
So
an
file,
integer.
new
If you
class.
find this video
I'll call
helpful,
this. Please
then
remember
add a
to
comma
like
afterwards.
any specific game
Comment,
and
copy
subscribe.
this, and
Your
do the same
support
thing
will help
for
keep
the
this
y
channel
position.
running. Class. So
Alright,
game
everybody,
we're going to be
equals
discussing
current
key
point
bindings.
dot get
What this does
y,
is that this
and then
binds an
previous
action
point
to
dot
let's
get
create a
y.
constructor. So
For
for
this
example,
game.
let's
So
say
this is
that
going to
within
translate.
certain games you might be able to move your character
Okay,
forward
so
by
we can
clicking
actually
the
bind
W button
actions
or
for
A
points
for
dot
left,
get.
S for
So
down,
if
or
you want
D
to
for
create an
right.
action,
Previous
so
point
this is
dot
very
get
similar
to
to
your
key
class.
listener. So this is going to translate our
So
image
we're going to
corner
key bindings. They actually don't require you to click a down action, left action, and all swing components. So at least all swing components that I know of point actually are capable of using. We'll call this up. And the reason that you might want to use key bindings
translate.
is
Lastly, we just
that
take
gives you
repaint
more
this x dimension
flexibility.
and a
You can
y
actually
dimension.
assign
Let's run this.
different keystrokes.
So I'm
need
actually going to
individual action
expand
performance
these
methods.
So let's say
Our
that
image You have player 1 and player 2.
So first thing we're going to tell you that's it for this certain project grade. We're going to place two players or down, left, and right. Although one's outside key bindings over left action, they tend to be more difficult to previous. But I'll give you guys just a quick demonstration discussing how these key bindings. If you're ready, let's bring it back down. We're going to create a new class. We're going to well as this folder, file, new class. If you find this video helpful, please remember to come back on any specific game or this. Your support can actually create class. So everybody, we're going to be discussing key bindings. What this does is that this binds action and lets us create specific characters. So for example, let's say this is going to transfer
games, you might be able to move your character forward. So we can actually bind actions for a 2 points or last action. So if we want to create an action, so this is very similar to your class. So this is going to translate. So we're going to create bindings. They actually don't require you to clicking down action. There will be more on this in the ultimate component. So like previous, this would be a point. Actually, our people player AJ frame of this frame. And the reason that's only going to use it is going to translate this label more exponential label. You can actually assign this. So we're actually going to action performed. So let's say that you have player 1 and player 2. First thing we're going to tell that's it for this project grade. We're going to place two players or down, left, and right. Although one's outside key bindings over left action, let's begin by setting up more difficult previous. So I'll bring guys quick demonstration discussing random key bindings. Let's call this ready key up, down, left, create a new class as well as this. There's not necessary. If you find this video please remember to come back on any specific operations. Your support can create class on. So everybody, we're going to be discussing key bindings. What this does is that this binds action and lets us create specific characters. So for example, say this is going to transfer games might be able to not want to so we can actually bind actions for a 2 points or last action. So if we want to create an action, let's set this creating actions or so this is going to translate. So we're going to create bindings. They actually don't require you to act. Let's create our action. There will be more on this in the ultimate component. So like previous, this is the label actually hit player AJ frame label frame. And the reason that's only going to use it is going to exponential label. You can actually assign colors. So we're actually going to action performed. So let's say that you have player 1 and first thing we're going to do is project grade. We're going to place two players or down, left, and right. Although one's outside key bindings for left action, let's begin by setting up more difficult previous. So I'll bring guys quick video discussing random key bindings. Let's call this ready key up, down, left, new class. We're going to browse this. There's not necessary. If you find this video please remember to come back on any specific operations. Your support can create on. So everybody, we're going to be discussing key bindings. What we're going to be doing is actually bind action. Let's create specific characters. For example, say this is going to translate games might be able to not want to so we can actually bind actions or a use that we declare. So if we want to create a previous point is creating a characters. So this is going to translate. So we're going to create bindings. They actually don't require you to let's create our action. There will be more on this in the ultimate component. So like previous, this is the label actions hit player AJ frame label frame. And the reason that's only going to use it is going to translate. This label or exponential. You can actually assign colors. So we're actually going to action down down. Player 1 and first thing we're going to do is place two players down, left, and right. Although one's outside left action, let's begin by setting up more previous. So here guys, random key bindings. Let's call this ready key up, down, left, new class. We're going to browse this. There's not necessary. What we'll do is your support can create some what we're going to be doing is actually
action map. And then method chain by adding dot put, and this has a key as well as an action. So this key is going to be in the first line, our up action. So let's take our up action. Method, it's going to move our label up and let's associate the up action with method chain by adding dot. So since this is a single character, make sure that these are well within single quotes. So this key is going to be down line, our up action. Left will be a action. So let's try this again. So let's take our up action.
There's still a lot more you can do with key bindings, so I might
Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and your support will help us. Okay,
associate the up action with method change.
Lastly, this not visible. This is a true character.
Make sure
now I'm on Oracle's website looking up some Java documentation, and for the component class is a parent class to many. There is a paint component. So let's take component class, and this has a
there's still a lot more you can do with key binding, so I might somewhere
please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and your support will help us.
what we're going to be doing up action with method change. Lastly, this is so very first line. Now I'm on Oracle's website looking up some Java documentation, and for the component class is a parent class to many. There is a component class G, and this has a let's begin by
Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and your support will help
However, it's not necessarily our frame, the size of the frame also includes the window part. So with our starting now, I'm on board. It's actually starting in the top left of the panel, and the somewhat overlapping a graphic area. So there is a panel on this panel. G as has a frame. So let's actually create a class. Let's begin by panel the paint method. So take the paint method from my frame. An instance of my we'll call this panel, and then instantiate it within the constructor. Panel equals new my panel. So let's do that right about here. This dot add, we're adding our panel. And we no longer need a size, and we should probably pack this. So after you add all the components that you want, follow this with this dot pack. So this should fit nicely. Now what's going to happen is that this is going to create a panel size of the frame. What ends up happening now is that what we're covering is the size of the frame so starting now, I'm on board. It's actually starting overlapping. So now this entire panel is fully somewhat overlapping. Draw a few things within the paint method. So we drew one line. Let's change the width of the line. This is kind of like the stroke, the brush size that we're using. So we can actually change that. G to 0. So set, there is exactly all sorts of things that you can set, but we're looking for set stroke, and we can pass this set the size of the stroke. So if we want this to be 5 pixels, we'll pass in 5. And what we get is an extra thick line, and it's not just a 1 pixel brush stroke. You can also change the color too. So let's actually create dot set paint, and you pass in a color. So let's say we want this line to be blue. Color dot blue. You can also pass in stick with simple colors. So now we have a blue line going across the screen. Let's draw a few other shapes. For now, I'm just going to draw a type name of our 2D graphic, which is G2D dot draw, and there's all sorts of things that we can draw. Let's draw a rectangle, and this is draw rect, like get wrecked. So we place starting coordinates as arguments, as well as a width and height for this rectangle. Let's say we want this to begin in the top left corner of the panel. So that would be where x is 0, y is 0, and let's make this 100 by 200. If you want this to be a square, you can make this 100 by 100. So now we have a rectangle on our panel, and it retains that blue color that we set, as well as the stroke size. That's kind of like the line thickness. So if you need to draw another graphic, you can actually set the paint color to something else before you actually draw this. Let's set this to pink. I don't know why, I just picked a random color. And now we have a pink rectangle, and if you need to fill this, that's actually a different method, fill rect.
So that would be G2D dot fill, and you can fill all sorts of shapes here. We're looking for fill rect, and we'll keep the same coordinates. So 0, 0, then 100 and 200 for the height. And here's our rectangle in the top left corner of the screen, and it is completely filled. One important thing that you should keep in mind and know is that as you're drawing graphics, any more recently created graphics are going to overlap any previously created ones. So if we were to draw this line and then draw a rectangle, the rectangle is going to overlap this line, kind of like there's a z-axis. So anything that is more recently created is going to overlap any previous items or graphics. Let's draw a circle next, and I'll get rid of our rectangle that we have, as well as this line. We'll just turn these into comments. If you need to draw a circle, you use either draw or fill oval. G2D dot, let's draw an oval first. So this will be just an outline. Draw oval. Now the coordinates are the top left of the drawable area for this oval. So if we want this to start in the top left corner of the panel, that would be where x is 0, y is 0, and let's make the width 100 and the height 100, I suppose. And we should have a... Actually, let's change the color to G2. Let's make this, I guess, orange. Kind of like it's the sun. I suppose yellow would work too. We'll keep the same stroke size of 5. And we have a orange outline of a circle, or oval. And if you need to fill this in, you would instead use fill oval, which we'll do. G2D dot fill, and we're looking for oval. And we'll place this at the same coordinates. Same width and height too. And we have an orange circle, or oval, in the top left corner of our panel. Okay, this next one is a little tricky. This is draw arc. And let's set a color. So we're actually going to use draw arc to draw a Pokeball for practice. G2D dot, let's draw arc first, then fill arc. Draw arc. And there's a few more arguments. Starting coordinates. So we'll place this in the top left corner just to keep things simple. For the width, let's make this 100 and the height 100. So for the starting angle, let's set this to 0, and the arc angle will make this 180. So this will be a half circle because it's 180 degrees. Now, if we were to change the starting angle, let's say 180, it's going counterclockwise. Let's practice drawing a Pokeball. So let's... I would say hemisphere. And set this to 0, and we're going to use fill arc. And we'll get rid of draw arc. Actually, we should get rid of the stroke size too. Alright, so we should have a red half circle. And the bottom's going to be white, but I'm not sure how well this is going to display. So let's set the paint after we fill the first arc. And color this white. Color dot white. And we'll have the starting angle be 180, but we'll keep the full extent of the arc at 180, so it's another half circle. And we should have a Pokeball, or at least something that slightly resembles a Pokeball. I would say that's close enough since we're just beginners at this. Alright, we can also draw a triangle, and for that we'll actually use a method called draw or fill polygon, and we actually have to pass in an array of coordinates, or integers. So this would be G2